Hello, I'm sort of stuck here down under in Australia. I've been here for a long time now, from Yorkshire. I was sent here in 1965 to sort of study Australians, and I've been doing that. And we found out, why they send people out from England because they weren't good enough to be English people. They end up as Australians, but will not. Now I'll go into that on a different video. What I want to do is add a sort of a Yorkshire logic to some of the many politically correct arguments and carry-ons that are in the world of these days, which doesn't make any sense to some of us. It might make sense to those people doing it, squashing your freedom of speech by saying it's politically incorrect to say this or that or the other. Who are these dictators anyway? To tell us another person what he can think or what he sees, what he can say or what he believes in. That's what these people are trying to say. You've got to believe what I believe. Well, I call that a dictatorship. Heil Hitler and all that. And I don't like Adolf Hitler. I didn't like him. I didn't like Stalin much at all either. And they're sort of dictators. And that's political correctness is a sort of a dictatorship by people who really don't know what they're talking about. Because they can't argue themselves forward logically and rationally, they're going to sort of say, well, you're not allowed to say that because, well, I don't even understand what you're saying. And that's what most of political correctness is people who don't understand how to put a rational argument together, therefore don't like other people who can. Anyway, that's not only part of the thing. What I was going to talk about is sexism in women. Like you're not supposed to see them as sex objects. Well, unless you're gay. I mean, maybe gay men don't see them as sex objects. But it's normal for heterosexual men to see other women, as beings, women, to have sex with, not objects. But women, they're not objects the women to have sex with. It's a personal thing to have sex with a woman. And it's not objectified as such. But if you didn't, it can't be helped. Or you're sexist. I'm not really quite sure what it means. I mean, I think women should have certain roles. I don't think they should go down the pit. I don't think they should be laying bricks or wheeling barrels full of concrete and stuff like that. Does that make me sexist? I don't think women should be wheeling big heavy barrels of bricks or stuff like that because it might damage their womb. Does that make me sexist? Does it? Because I think women ought not to be doing certain jobs like that because besides it makes hands rough. Who wants to go to bed with women with rough hands, Anyway, we don't talk about that bit. Having rough hands on your sort of self, it wouldn't feel like a woman anymore, would it? Anyway, that's beside the point. But because women, we want to think they're sexy. They're a bit sexy, they're really sexy all the time. But the thing is, when they complain, as they do in Australia and America these days, they've gone sort of crazy, these women, sexist women they are, wherever they're going about sexism and all that sort of stuff. Yet they buy the sexiest clothes they can get, pay fortune for them, make all the fashion houses really rich. And then they say, when they wear tight clothes that show all their breasts, and you go, oh, you can't help but look at them. And because you don't know them personally, I have never met them before, you don't know them, they're walking down the street or on the beach in bikinis. Of course you see them. Their sexuality, you objectify a bit. Their sexuality and fancy them, or fancy that, fancy that. It's normal. And God, it's normal. And they say, oh, you're a sexist, you fancy women. Well, no, actually, we're just being a human. Just a man. Just a human. Can't help it. It's in my blood. It's in my testicles, actually. I can't do much about it. I can't stop myself fancying women. And I don't want to stop myself fancying women. Stop myself fancying women. They're going to put me in a grave. When I've stopped fancying women, just as I don't know even then. I'll die as a stiff. I'll die as a stiffy. I mean, that seems a significant time. When you're dead, you would die as a stiffy. I mean, you die stiff. Thinking about women, just as that's the last thing you think of. God, I wish I'd got one more shagging before I die. That's the last thing you think of. If when you're coming, you went on your gravestone. Here he lies, with a smile. They couldn't find his taxation file. All he earned was all he spent, and when he was coming, he went. Now, if that's on your gravestone, then you've done well, really. It don't matter what age you die, but if you die, it says you're sort of sad for missus and all that, they said, oh, at least our Johnny had a go. He was going, you know, proud that he died on the job sort of thing. Because, you know, that's what men are like. And if women don't like the fact that men are like that, maybe they're lesbians or shouldn't be bothered with them and go sort of become, you know, matrons forever. You know, the sisterhood of matrons. Feminism, maybe, really. You know, the Victorian sisterhood of spinsters. Well, maybe that's feminism is your modern equivalent of Victorian spinsters. Here we didn't want nothing to do with men. Oh no, they do things and it makes us disgusted with them. No, we don't want that. Of course, men should always be a gentleman when it comes to the actual making of love itself. But that's another story altogether. I'm not going to go into that here. Each to their own preferences, but nonetheless, to say for women to say, well, you're being sexist about women, no, I'm just being normal. Don't tell me how to be, and I won't tell you how to be. You don't tell me how to be, and I won't tell you how to be. If you're going to tell me how to be, I'm going to tell you to get stuffed, and don't tell me how to be. That's going to start an argument. So if you don't want an argument with me of this political correct stuff, don't tell me what to think or what to believe or say you can't say this, that or the other. Because I want a blokes who doesn't want to live in a dictatorship. And one of them people have this strange thing about, I don't fancy living under a Sikh-style dictatorship that the left want to bring us into. All political correctness, which is a political corporation anyway, and that's what Mussolini was all about, a political corporation. I think he came up with that term. Hitler had a political corporation and actually run us all the industrial machinery for making weapons, and that was all industrial complex was all run by a political corporation or under the auspices of. So a political corporation, which is PC, is what it means, is the beginning of a new type of dictatorship, where first of all they're conditioning people into sort of being afraid to speak and getting young people, which I call PC warriors, to sort of control the speech of others by carrying on and protesting. And these young people just simply don't have the education, really, to be able to articulate, explain many of the things they're protesting or carrying on about. Climate change is one of them. Most people don't have a clue about that, or even what the challenges are in climate change. But I do digress, because I'm going to cover all these things. But this thing about you are sexist because you fancy women as, you know, if you're women walking past and they're showing all their breasts, well, sorry, I don't know you personally. I do not know you. I don't know you at all. If I did get to know you and talk to you about something other than whatever, then you would not be a sex object when I'm talking to you. But you might fancy you. You might fancy me. You might see me as a sex object. And I am not going to complain. No man has ever complained in the history of humanity. Well, maybe there's a few odds, you know, but no man that I know of is complained ever that women have fancied them as a sex object. And until the time arises when women stop fancying men, start fancying men, stop fancying them or start fancying them, and openly fancying men as sex objects like men fancy women, and openly about it, then they'll be equal. It can't be equal if it's not equality. If women are telling men how to be, they're subjugating them. You can't tell men not to be men, and if men can't be looking at women as sort of sexy things, well, you're telling men how to be. So that's not actually diversity. It's not allowing a diversity between even the two sexes. It's about men must act like women, but how do women act? So women don't fancy men either. It's a bit odd. Women don't say, whoa, he's a hunk. Women don't fancy men. No, it's actually hard. And women don't think, well, that's a man's job. Aren't there some jobs that women are better at? Because they're women, because they're maternal, because their mother instinct in them. Because that nurturing of women, the lovely nurturing of them, makes them sort of better nurses or better carers or better mothers because they're women. Not one human created the natural world. It created itself, or if you like, God created it, whatever is up to you. But men did not create the fact that they fancy women. Nature did that. The males, all male animals, all fancy female animals. You can't say male, he's not an animal. You take his clothes off, he looks like one. A few drinks in them, and he acts like one. So you see, men are sort of animals, you've got to tame them, and it's up to mothers. Really, mothers, the main point, if women don't want men to turn out to be complete animals, then they ought to be really good mothers and bring boys up to be chivalrous and gentlemen towards women. So even if they do fancy them, they don't carry on so much to make it so damned obvious it makes the women feel uncomfortable. And that would be sort of solve the problem of the more outrageous aspects of what is called sexism, which I don't quite get. I have even no idea what the bloody thing means. I am sexist because I fancy women. Well, so what? Who cares if I'm sexist? Who cares if I'm even homophobic? Does it mean I don't like gay men? I just don't like gay sex. I've got a phobia about gay sex. I don't fancy it. I don't like spiders either. I've got a phobia by spiders. Arachnophobia. I've got claustrophobia. And I've got all sorts of other phobias. So I should be castigated for having arachnophobia? Or claustrophobia? I don't like putting in small places? Oh, no, you've got a claustrophobia. No, we're going to have a go at you. It's politically incorrect to have claustrophobia. Well, really, political correctness is putting people in a very small space of what you can think, say, and believe, actually. It's creating a sort of hysteria within the public, but it's creating a sort of claustrophobia about being pushed into a sort of corral controlled by a bunch of politically correct elitists who want to control society because they're actually elite socialists, and that's what it is. They're like a fascist organisation, actually, conditioning society to be, to do and say and believe what it says it wants them to do, say and believe. So that's my sort of little take on sexism. I'm not sexist because I fancy women. That's just a term they've made up. I don't believe in it. I just fancy women. And that's it. I always will. Doesn't mean I'm after chasing them all like that. I don't chase them all. But I like looking at them. Look pretty. Young women and that. Older women. Who cares? They all sort of, you look sort of... You can fancy them. I don't know them. Until I know them intellectually, if I start intellectualising with them, then I get to sort of know their character and all that about them. Then the sexual part of it goes away. It's gone. It's because you don't know. But if I don't know them and walking down the street, end of story, is it's safe for all the men. So I'm sort of defending all the men here. See all these women as, objectified sexual. Well, that's the women's fault. That's the women's fault for dressing in really these provocative, confrontational clothes where they're showing all their breasts and everything. You're going, and I'm sure they show all their breasts sometimes to take away from the fact they don't have much in the head. If you want to get a job, lady, show your breasts and you can go and get a job as a top secretary for someone regardless, just sort of, you can hardly type. I mean, it's just but she'll get the income, and what she wants is the income. She's getting the income out of her sexuality. This is, well, don't make me a sex object, so she better self one. Make yourself a sex object to get a fancy job, then complain so someone looks at your tits. It's make up your mind what you want. At least, like the Muslim sisters, and I respect them, they cover up. It doesn't stop them being sexy women. I'm sure they're very exotic ladies under all those burqas and clothes and all that. It doesn't stop that at all. Probably quite the opposite, actually. If you think about it for 2 minutes, then maybe we shouldn't. That's not what they want. But there you go. women might be losing their sort of sexual appeal by overdoing the total sexual confrontation with their sort of semi-nakedness. But when it all gets down to it, the sensual part of it all, maybe they're sort of not that turned on anyway. Maybe they're not that sexy. Maybe that's what the problem is. Maybe the problem is that women who come on most sexy aren't that sexy, and most women who cover up and are normal and maybe a little bit square looking and that are maybe the sexier women. Maybe it's all a bit of a confusion created by a few who are upset because relationships haven't turned out good enough because they've jumped into bed with men in such of a rush and got disappointed, and it's not been as good as it should. So therefore, all men after that should be castigated and cast out as sexist. Well, hypocrites, whether women or men, it doesn't matter. They're still hypocrites. This is Yorkshire Logic. I'm going to pull this political correctness apart.